The shopping mall was quiet in the way only large, empty places can be. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering in slow, uneven patterns. Somewhere far off, a vending machine hummed. The floor echoed under Harold Bennett's footsteps as he pushed his mop across the gleaming tiles. Harry had worked the night shift for almost 15 years. He liked the solitude, the way silence wrapped around the corridors like a blanket. The noise of the world didn't chase him here. No conversations to follow, no laughter to miss, just the steady rhythm of his work. He hummed as he moved, a low, tuneless hum that matched the sweep of the mop and the shuffle of his boots. In the pocket of his grey uniform, an old portable radio buzzed faintly with static. He took it out and twisted the dial until soft jazz trickled out. It was Coltrane, he thought, or maybe Davis. The signal was too fuzzy to be sure. He let the music play as he worked. Harry always brought music with him. Not the mall's piped-in playlist. He turned that off after the managers went home. He had his own tastes. Jazz from another time, when his hands had held a saxophone instead of a mop. Before the silences in his life had become permanent, he passed the same storefronts he saw every night, the shuttered bookstore, the perfume kiosk, the lonely bench near the children's play area, the same cracked tile near the fountain that no one had ever fixed. It was when he turned the corner toward the east wing that he heard something unusual, or rather, he noticed something missing. His music stopped. He looked down. The radio was still playing. The sound was still there, low and gentle, but for some reason, he had stopped hearing it. Something else had pulled at his attention, like a shift in air pressure. He turned his head slowly and saw a small figure curled up near the base of a decorative column. A child, small, still, head tucked into arms, shoulders shaking, crying but not audibly. Harry paused. He wasn't used to children being here this late, and the ones who were usually made noise, laughter, footsteps, chatter. This one made none of those. He approached carefully, his boots scuffing softly against the tile. "Hey," he said, voice gentle but uncertain. "You all right, kid?" The child didn't respond. He crouched, resting on his heels. The boy looked up, startled. Tear-streaked cheeks, red-rimmed eyes, maybe 8 or 9 years old, thin arms, a look of confusion, of fear, of searching. Harry raised his hands instinctively, palms out. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not gonna hurt you." The boy blinked and pointed to his ears, then shook his head slowly. Harry frowned. "You can't hear me?" The boy nodded, just once. Something clicked quietly in Harry's mind. He didn't panic. Instead, he sat down, slow and stiff, beside the boy. Not too close, just enough to let him know he wasn't alone. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the little radio. He turned the volume up slightly, just enough to let the jazz fill the silence between them. The boy watched, curious. Harry gently set the radio against one of the large support columns behind them. Then he placed his own hand flat against the cool metal surface. He gestured for the boy to do the same. Tentatively, the boy mimicked him, pressing his small palm against the column. His eyes widened. He could feel it, the rhythm, the vibration, the shape of the sound. Harry gave a small nod. He didn't smile, not quite, but something softer passed across his face, something unspoken. The boy kept his hand there for a long while. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. When a mall security guard came around the corner, flashlight beam bouncing, the boy startled. He stood quickly and wiped his face. The guard waved, calling out, and the boy looked one last time at Harry before turning and following the man down the corridor. Harry sat for a moment longer, then turned off the radio. The silence returned, full and soft. The radio was back in Harry's pocket. His mop leaned quietly against the wall. He stayed seated, right where the boy had left him. He wasn't sure how long he remained like that. 5 minutes? 10? Long enough for the shadows to shift slightly. long enough for the gentle buzz of the overhead lights to start feeling intrusive again. Harry got up slowly, knees stiff. He gave a last glance down the corridor toward where the boy had disappeared, then picked up his mop and returned to his routine. But that night, nothing felt the same. Every corner he turned, he half expected to see the boy again, curled up behind another pillar. He adjusted the radio's dial, but even Coltrane didn't fill the silence the way it had before. The next night, Harry brought a notebook and a pen in his pocket, just in case. But Noah didn't return, nor did he the night after that, or the one after that. Harry started walking slower in the east wing. He lingered near the bench, near the column, near the food court entrance. He swept the same stretch of floor more times than it needed, always with one ear tilted, just in case he heard nothing, and maybe saw something again. 3 nights later, he turned the corner and stopped cold. There he was, same spot, same posture, smaller than he remembered. A hunched little figure near the same column, knees pulled in, head down. Silent. Harry didn't speak this time. He approached, footsteps careful. The boy looked up, his face pale in the artificial light. He was no longer crying, but his eyes were wary, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be here, or if Harry would remember him. Harry gave a small nod. Not a smile, just a quiet gesture. I see you. I remember. It's okay. The boy pointed to his ears again, then to his mouth. He opened and closed his hand near his chin, a motion Harry didn't recognize. Harry reached into his pocket and slowly pulled out the notebook. He scribbled something, turned the pad around. What's your name? The boy stared at it, his brow furrowed. Then he pointed to himself, made a few quick motions with his hands, again unintelligible to Harry, but then carefully he traced the letters into the air. N-O-A-H. Harry nodded again. Noah, he said aloud softly, though he knew the boy couldn't hear it. Then he pointed to himself, touched his chest, wrote the word in the notebook, Harry. Noah looked at him for a long moment, then sat cross-legged on the floor. Harry did the same. From his pocket came the small radio, just as before. He set it beside them and turned it on. Low, mellow jazz again, a brushed snare and warm saxophone filling the air between them. Noah leaned forward, curious. He touched the speaker, then the floor. He moved closer to the base of the column and pressed his palm against it. Harry mirrored him. The boy's expression changed. It softened. His lips parted slightly in surprise, his eyes wide and bright, locked on Harry's. They sat like that and side by side, touching sound, sharing quiet, a connection born not in speech, but in stillness. For a long while, that was all they needed. Noah didn't say goodbye. He simply stood, adjusted the strap of his backpack and walked away. Slow steps, no glance back. Harry stayed seated, hand still resting on the cool column, the ghost of vibration still tingling in his palm. He thought Noah might return again the next night. He didn't, nor the next. The east wing felt larger without him somehow. The silence, once familiar, now pressed against Harry's chest with more weight than usual. He found himself looking at shadows for too long, checking the bench, pausing at the column, like the still air might give him a sign. It didn't. Harry worked slower now, not out of laziness, but in resistance, like each sweep of his mop was pushing time forward against his will. Some nights, he brought the radio back to the same spot and let the music play while he sat, alone. The mall had never felt lonelier. One night, after his shift ended, Harry didn't go straight home. Instead, he stopped at a late-night diner, ordered coffee he didn't want and sat by the window. He pulled out an old, worn photograph from his wallet, folded 3 times, creased in the middle. In it, he was younger, laughing, saxophone in hand. Beside him, a woman with sharp eyes and soft lips leaned against a piano. Her hands were raised in mid-motion, fingers moving through the air, signing something. Evelyn. She'd been deaf since birth. Harry never learned sign language properly, not fluently. She had taught him enough to get by, enough to say, "I love you, you're beautiful, play that one again." But she read lips better than he signed, and eventually they fell into their own rhythm, part signing, part gestures, part long looks across quiet rooms. They didn't need words, not always, not then. But now, Harry would give anything to speak that language again. Back home, he rummaged through an old box beneath the bed. There, beneath old sheet music and scattered reeds, he found it. A small, folded pamphlet Evelyn had once used to teach him the alphabet. ASL Basics, a beginner's guide. The pages were faded, edges yellowed. The illustrations were simple, a hand drawing of each letter's sign, along with a few basic words. Hello, thank you, music. He sat at the kitchen table with the pamphlet spread in front of him and began copying the motions. Clumsy at first, his fingers stiff, his memory slower than he liked. But he tried. He practiced H, then A, then R, until he could spell his own name, then N and O, then A and H. It was late when he finally put the pamphlet down. The room was silent except for the distant ticking of the stove clock and the wind pressing gently at the windows. He missed Noah. Not because of what the boy had said. He hadn't said anything. But because of what he made Harry feel. That brief flicker of something familiar. The echo of Evelyn's hands in the shape of Noah's silence. The way the boy listened with his skin. The way he responded to music without needing ears. Harry glanced at the photograph again. "I should have learned more," he murmured. But now, maybe, it wasn't too late to start again. Harry didn't expect to see Noah again. He'd stopped hoping for it, at least consciously. But part of him, the part that still carried a folded pamphlet in his pocket and traced letters in the air when no one was looking, hadn't let go. It was a Wednesday night. The mall was half lit, the usual hum of air vents and distant escalators underscoring the stillness. Harry had just finished cleaning the food court tables when he saw them. Two figures walking slowly through the eastern corridor, a boy and a woman, Noah. Harry froze in place. His heart skipped once, then thudded against his ribs like a warning. Noah looked different, more confident in his step maybe, his face calmer. His eyes found Harry almost immediately. The boy gave a quick small wave. The woman beside him, tall, neatly dressed, with dark hair pulled back in a braid, stopped as Noah did. She studied Harry for a moment before giving a nod. Harry set down the mop and walked toward them. Noah gestured quickly, fingers moving in short bursts, eyes never leaving Harry. The woman translated aloud, her voice calm and practiced. He says, "I wanted to come back, to hear the music again." Harry let the words sink in. He nodded once but didn't speak yet. His throat felt dry. The woman extended a hand. "I'm Miss Taylor. I teach Noah at the Deaf Learning Center. He told me about you." Harry shook her hand, cautious. "Harry Bennett." She smiled politely, but her eyes flicked toward Noah. It's rare that he talks about anyone new, especially outside school. Noah signed something again. Taylor added, "He says you let him feel the music. He didn't know that was possible." Harry hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out the radio. He turned it on. Soft jazz again. Mellow, familiar. The same station, barely changed. He held it toward Noah, who stepped closer and pressed his fingers against the plastic casing. The boy's eyes closed. Taylor watched, quiet. After a few seconds, Noah let go and signed something, slower this time. Taylor didn't translate right away. She just watched. Her expression changed, softened. There was something almost wistful in it. Then she said, "He says, the music reminds him of water. He says it feels smooth tonight." Harry almost smiled. That's Coltrane. Taylor tilted her head. Did you play? He nodded. Long time ago. She didn't ask more. Didn't need to. The silence around them was full of suggestions, unsaid stories waiting at the edges. Noah tugged on Taylor's sleeve and signed again, this time more animated. His hands moved in broad arcs. Taylor hesitated before translating. He wants to show you something. Can he come back tomorrow? Harry glanced at her, then at Noah, whose face was bright with anticipation. He thought of Evelyn, of the pamphlet, of the ache that had lived in his chest for years, and how, for just a moment, it had eased when this boy had pressed his palm to the wall. Of course, Harry said quietly. He can come back whenever he wants. Taylor looked surprised, not by the answer, but by how firmly he'd said it. She smiled, this time not politely, but something more real. That'll mean a lot to him. Noah signed a thank you. Harry hesitated, then tried to copy the motion. It was rough, uncertain. Noah grinned. Taylor watched the two of them with a kind of distant wonder. She folded her arms across her chest and looked away, toward the empty corridor, as though the moment were too intimate to keep watching. There was something unreadable in her face. Not jealousy, not sadness, but something adjacent to both. Do you ever feel like the silence is louder than the noise? She asked softly, not looking at either of them. Harry didn't answer at first, then, yeah, most nights. She nodded slowly. Same. A beat passed between them. Then Noah clapped once, sharply, and the sound echoed down the corridor. He looked up at Harry with a small, expectant smile. Harry smiled back, this time for real. The silence was still there, but it didn't feel as heavy. Noah returned the next evening, just as promised. Miss Taylor walked beside him again, but this time she kept a small distance, not out of coldness, but with a kind of quiet respect, like someone stepping back to let a song begin. Harry was already waiting in the east wing, sitting cross-legged near the base of the column, radio on, jazz whispering through the structure. He'd cleaned the area early that night, deliberately, so he could be there without interruption. Noah didn't hesitate. As soon as he saw Harry, he dropped his backpack beside him and sat. No awkwardness, no uncertainty. Harry nodded. Hey. Noah signed something quickly. Taylor stepped forward. He said, "You came early." Harry shrugged. Didn't want to miss anything. Taylor smiled and didn't translate that. Noah began signing again. Slower this time. He pointed at Harry, then touched his forehead with a loose fist, tapping gently. Harry looked confused. Taylor translated, "He's asking if you remember the sign for your name." Harry nodded, hesitant. He made the motion Evelyn once taught him, the H, then the A, though his fingers stumbled through the R. Noah corrected him gently, guiding his hand mid-air, smiling but patient. Harry let him. Something loosened in his chest. Not quite grief, not quite joy. Just release. After spelling Harry twice, they moved on. Noah taught him the signs for music, good, friend, and again. He was animated, his expressions doing half the talking, hands painting in the air. Sometimes he'd tap Taylor's arm and sign something too fast for Harry to follow. She would translate, though her voice was softer each time, as though she knew words weren't always needed anymore. At one point, Noah placed his palm against the wall again. The jazz playing tonight was slower, a walking bass line and soft brushes on a snare. Harry mirrored him. They sat in silence, the kind that hums rather than presses. Noah signed something. Taylor watched, then said quietly, "He says, the music is like a wave. You don't have to hear it to know it's there." Harry looked at the boy for a long moment. He cleared his throat, his voice rough. How do you know what it is? Music, I mean. Noah glanced at Taylor, then back at Harry. He thought for a moment, really thought, then signed carefully. Taylor translated, he says, "It's in the way it moves through things. Like the floor, the column, my chest. It's like when you feel thunder before you hear it." Harry let that sit in the air for a while. He'd never thought of music like that, not once. For him, it had always been about notes, tone, precision. The saxophone's bend, the melody's breath. But this was different, more primal, more internal. Something felt, not performed. Noah signed again. Taylor spoke, but slower this time. He says, "I used to think I was missing something, but now I think it just comes to me in a different way." Harry's eyes stung. He blinked hard. "Your way might be better." Noah smiled, not wide, but deep. A smile that started in the eyes. They kept practicing, more signs, more gestures. When Harry got one right, Noah tapped the floor twice with satisfaction. When he messed up, Noah simply repeated it, patient. Taylor began translating less. There were long pauses between phrases now, moments filled only by soundless understanding. Eye contact, nods, mimic gestures, small smiles, as if words were slowly becoming unnecessary. For Harry, it was something like remembering a song you hadn't played in years, the kind where your fingers still know the notes, even if your mind doesn't. Eventually, Noah pulled something from his backpack, a small notebook. He flipped through a few pages, then handed it to Harry. The first page read in large, careful handwriting, "Can we make our own signs too?" Harry looked up. "Our own?" Noah nodded. He pointed to himself, then made a swirling motion over his heart with both hands, like stirring something invisible. Then he pointed to Harry and repeated the gesture. Taylor, watching, said nothing. She didn't need to. Harry thought a moment, then mimicked the motion. He tapped his chest with a curled hand, then flicked his fingers out, like letting go of something light. He pointed to Noah. Noah watched, then grinned. It wasn't a proper sign, but it meant something now, just between them. They were building something, a language without grammar, born not from books or teachers, but from shared space and intention, and maybe from need. As the hour grew late, Taylor finally stepped forward. "We should go soon, Noah. School tomorrow." Noah signed quickly, a flurry of motion. Taylor smiled. "He says tomorrow too." Harry nodded. "Tomorrow too." Noah stood and waved goodbye, not the childish wave of their first meeting, but something more deliberate, a parting between equals. Taylor lingered a moment. "Whatever this is," she said softly, "he's never had it before." Harry looked at the column, the empty air between them. Me neither. The mall was quieter than usual that night. Most of the lights had been dimmed except in the food court, where the overhead fluorescent still hummed softly above empty tables and plastic chairs. Harry stood alone near the center, holding something he hadn't touched in years, his saxophone. It was old, older than Noah, older than some of the fixtures in the mall. Its lacquer had dulled, the brass a little green around the edges, but the weight in Harry's hands felt solid, familiar, like shaking hands with an old friend. Noah and Miss Taylor sat on the edge of a table watching. Noah's legs swung just above the floor, his hands resting on a small speaker Harry had connected to the old amplifier. The same jazz station played softly through it, but tonight Harry had something else in mind. He looked over at Noah. The boy gave him a small nod. Harry raised the mouthpiece to his lips. The first note wavered, breathy and uncertain, but the second came smoother. Then the third. A slow, deliberate blues melody began to fill the space, notes bending gently, lingering in the empty air like incense. Noah leaned forward, palms pressed flat to the speaker. His eyes closed. The sound rippled through the speaker, through the table, through his hands. He didn't smile, but something in his face changed. His brow softened and his mouth parted ever so slightly, as though the sound passed through him like light filtered through water. Harry played on. The melody wasn't technical, it wasn't fancy, but it was full. It was grief and memory. It was Evelyn swaying in the kitchen, barefoot, fingers tracing music in the air. It was long nights and longer silences. It was rediscovery, not of music itself, but of purpose, of reach, of language without words. Miss Taylor watched in silence, hands clasped together on her lap. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't move, didn't speak. Noah opened his eyes and looked directly at Harry. "He signed something," Taylor whispered, her voice almost a breath. "He says, 'I don't need to hear to feel.'" Harry didn't stop playing. Not yet. He closed his own eyes for a moment, letting the melody shift. Softer now, more intimate. The final notes tapered into silence like a candle burning low. Noah kept his hands on the speaker for a few extra seconds. Then slowly, he pulled away. His face was unreadable, not blank, just deep, like the quiet surface of a pond. He turned to Miss Taylor and signed something slowly with care. She watched him, then looked at Harry. Her voice cracked slightly when she translated. "He says, 'That was the first time I felt someone speak to me.'" Harry exhaled, his grip tightening around the saxophone. He wasn't sure what to say. He wasn't even sure he could say anything. But then he stepped forward, knelt beside the speaker, and placed his own palm where Noah's had just been. He looked at the boy and simply nodded. "I understand." Noah returned the nod. Nothing dramatic, nothing big, just recognition. Miss Taylor wiped at her eye discreetly and looked away, embarrassed by her own emotion. But Harry saw it, and she knew he saw. No one spoke for a while. Finally, Taylor said softly, "He used to think music was something people like him could never know, that it belonged to another world. I think you gave it back to him tonight." Harry looked down at the saxophone. "He gave it back to me first." They packed up in silence. The mall was nearly empty now. Only a few security lights remained, casting long shadows on the polished floors. As Noah slipped his backpack over his shoulder, he stopped in front of Harry. He touched his chest with one fist, then pointed gently at Harry. Harry mimicked the gesture. He didn't need a translation. Their signs didn't follow any official book, but the meaning was unmistakable. "You matter. You too." It was after hours again, the mall long closed, the hum of the vents the only sound lingering. Harry, Noah and Miss Taylor sat on the floor of the food court, backs leaned against a cold tiled wall. The saxophone lay nearby, its mouthpiece capped, resting like a sleeping animal. The speaker was off. No radio tonight. Silence had become their shared language. Noah scribbled something in his notebook, then turned it toward Harry. "Why did you stop playing?" Harry took his time before answering. He stared at the words like they carried weight beyond their ink. "My wife," he said eventually. "She died years ago." His voice was quiet, steady. "She was deaf. Music was how we stayed close. I'd play, and she'd rest her hand on the piano or on my chest. She used to say she could feel my soul moving through the air." Taylor translated gently for Noah, who nodded with slow understanding. "I stopped playing when she passed," Harry added. "Didn't seem like there was anyone left to hear it." Taylor's expression softened. She looked down at her hands, then back at Harry. "Can I tell you something?" He nodded. "I've been losing my hearing since I was 28, she said. "It's not complete, not yet. But I can't hear birdsong anymore, or whispers. High notes vanish, and every year it gets a little worse." Harry didn't interrupt. He could tell it cost her something to say this aloud. "I've spent most of my adult life teaching kids how to live in silence, while I've been terrified of slipping into it myself." She swallowed, eyes shimmering. "Noah doesn't know that part. I keep my fears buried so I can be strong for them." Harry looked at her, really looked. She always carried herself with control, precision, purpose. Now, her shoulders sagged just slightly, like someone finally letting the armor slip. "You ever tell him?" he asked. Taylor shook her head. "No." It felt wrong, like I'd turn his world into my burden. Noah was watching them both. He hadn't written anything down, nor signed a single word, but his presence was heavy with attention, empathy. He reached out suddenly, placing his palm gently on Taylor's shoulder. His other hand moved, a slow, precise gesture. Taylor hesitated, then spoke, voice barely audible. He says, "You don't have to hear everything to understand someone." Her breath caught. Noah signed again, this time to both of them. Taylor translated, blinking through tears. "You hear with more than your ears." Harry chuckled softly, a sound almost lost in the vast, empty court. "That kid's wiser than most grown-ups I know." Noah gave him a sly smile, the kind that said, "I know." Harry leaned back, letting his head rest against the wall. His voice came lower now, more to himself. "She was the first person who ever really saw me," he murmured. "Evelyn. Everyone else heard my music and thought they knew me. She couldn't hear a damn note, but she felt everything. I didn't have to explain myself." Noah scribbled something, then turned the notebook again. "That's what I feel too. 3 people, one fading world of sound between them. But here in the stillness, the connections felt stronger than any words ever could." Miss Taylor took a slow breath, her voice quiet. "I think I've been hiding behind sound. Like if I lost it completely, I'd lose who I am." Harry turned to her. "But you're still here, still teaching, still showing up for him." She met his gaze. "So are you." That silence again, this time warm, full, not hollow. Noah drew something on the next page of the notebook, a rough sketch of 3 stick figures, a speaker, and lines coming from the speaker into their hands, their chests, their heads. He held it up proudly. Taylor laughed softly. "He says we're our own band now." Harry smiled. No conductor, no score, just rhythm shared in silence. The night was quiet again. Harry was closing up early, though there wasn't much left to do. The food court had been swept, trash bins emptied. The lights dimmed to their final glow. Noah and Miss Taylor arrived without a word, as they had so many times before. But tonight felt different. Noah approached with his notebook held close to his chest. No music played, no jazz hummed through the speaker. Just the soft shuffle of their feet and the distant, rhythmic pulse of cleaning machines in other wings. He stopped in front of Harry, opened the notebook, and gently tore out a page. A drawing. 3 figures, one tall and square-shouldered, one slim with a long ponytail, and one small with messy hair. All 3 stood together. Around them floated hand-drawn music notes and small sound waves, but not just near their ears, around their hearts, in their joined hands. Below the picture, in careful, bold letters, "We don't need words." Harry looked at it for a long time, then down at Noah, then up at Taylor. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Noah reached out, placed his palm gently against Harry's chest. Then the boy signed something slow, deliberate. Taylor didn't translate. She didn't have to. The 3 of them stood there, framed by the faint glow of overhead lights. Not talking, not playing music, just being together. The silence that once stretched heavy and cold was now a kind of warmth, filled with things that didn't need sound to be understood. Harry smiled, the drawing clutched gently in one hand, and as the camera pulled away, slow, steady, the softest jazz faded in again. Just a whisper, enough to be felt. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you felt during the story. Your feedback means a lot and helps us keep creating meaningful narratives.